Boris Johnson's plan to set up a commission into racial equality in response to the Black Lives Matter protests has been criticised by the Shadow Justice Secretary David Lammy. He said the Prime Minister's proposal had been drawn up on the back of a fag packet and that instead of yet another review, Boris Johnson should implement the recommendations that previous inquiries had already come up with. Here's our Home Editor, Mark Easton.
Black Lives Matter, tens of thousands cry. I cannot ignore your strength of feeling, the Prime Minister responds, today announcing a commission to investigate racial inequality in Britain and report in 6 months.
What has slightly been lost in all this is the story of success. And what I really want to do as Prime Minister is change the narrative so we stop the sense of victimisation and discrimination.
It is both condescending and untrue. It's not a sense of victimisation or discrimination. It is the everyday reality.
So we're here today to remember George Floyd.
Details of how the commission will work are sketchy, with officials apparently taken by surprise. There have been questions as to whether the policy has been properly thought through.
If he was serious, why are there no details about how it will be staffed? Its remit, its terms of reference, its timetable. That's the question. It's because this was written on the back of a fag packet yesterday to assuage the Black Lives Matter protest.
Britain's had many inquiries and commissions looking at racial inequality and injustice. The Scarman report into race relations after the Brixton riots in the 80s. The Macpherson report, which found the Metropolitan Police was institutionally racist in the 90s. In the last 3 years, we've had major reports on race disparities in Britain, treatment of minorities by the criminal justice system, and racial discrimination in the workplace. All the reports and inquiries have produced dozens of recommendations and proposals which have been greeted by numerous promises and apologies. We already have a racial disparities unit here at the Cabinet Office in Whitehall, and the new commission will be in the same room. Rather than yet another Whitehall committee, wouldn't it be more helpful to allow us to see immediately the official findings on why people from black and other ethnic minorities are more likely to die from COVID-19?
I don't accept that this is yet another review on top of the ones that have gone before. We have made progress. It's not enough. We're still restless to bring further change. But the Prime Minister ran his election campaign on a levelling up agenda. He's been talking about this issue.
Will you fight racism with love?
However, the Prime Minister's claim that there's a story of success to be told did not find approval among Black Lives Matter protesters who took to the streets of Leeds yesterday.
People claiming that we're trying to play the victim, which is quite infuriating because nobody wants to be a victim, but regardless of people's stories and sentiments, the stats and figures do speak for themselves. Like, we are unfortunately the victim.
After the toppling of his statue, another legacy of slave trader Edward Colston was removed in Bristol today. The Prime Minister admits dealing with these issues won't be easy, and history tells us he's probably right. Mark Easton, BBC News.
In the United States, the widow of an African-American man who was shot dead by police in Atlanta on Friday has appealed for protests against his killing to be peaceful and says her family will never heal. Rayshard Brooks died while fleeing from 2 white police officers in a restaurant car park. His niece said he'd been killed like a piece of trash in the street. Our North America correspondent Nick Bryant has the story.
Atlanta, Georgia, the birthplace of Martin Luther King, a cradle of the civil rights movement, and now the scene again of America's unending racial struggle. Protests sparked by yet another police killing of an African-American, Rayshard Brooks, a 27-year-old father of 4. His young family appeared before the cameras today. This has become an all-too-familiar ritual of American life.
I can never tell my daughter, oh, he's coming to take you skating or swimming lessons. So it's just going to be a long time before I heal.
How many more protests will it take to ensure that the next victim isn't your cousin, your brother, your uncle, your nephew, your friend, or your companion?
The press conference ended with the family struggling to contain their emotions. They're demanding that murder charges be brought. Rayshard Brooks had been sleeping in his car when he was approached by 2 white police officers. After failing a breath test, the police tried to arrest him. Then came a struggle in which he grabbed one of their tasers. During a brief chase, he pointed the taser at the officer, who responded by fatally shooting him in the back. So Black Lives Matter is the cry once again. This latest killing fueling what's become a multiracial global movement. This has been a moment of reckoning and awakening, but protesters have seized upon this killing in Atlanta as proof that even at this time of heightened racial tensions, the police are continuing to use excessive force. Nick Bryant, BBC News, New York.